Today we look at how to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world without being legalistic. Hang on. Please be seated. We saw last time that Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." Now, he didn't say, "You will someday be that if you keep trying harder." Right? Nor did he say, "Well, you could have been that, but you messed it up so bad, now it's gone. It's over with." He says, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." And the issue is, do we believe that? You know, Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team as a sophomore. Imagine if Michael Jordan says, "Well, I guess I'm done. No more basketball for me." Imagine if Martin Luther had said, "Who am I to post the 95 Theses on the Wittenberg door? I can't do that. I'm a nobody. Nobody would listen to me." You see, we don't do the world a favor by putting our light under a basket. Folks, I believe every single one of us here has our own unique saltiness, has our own unique shininess, if you will. And the one best suited to call that which is already there out of us is Christ. Because who better to be an example of humanity than Christ? We saw last time that knowing who we are, not knowing who we are, diminishes us as the presence of the kingdom of heaven come to the earth. Do you know who you are today? But there's another thing that diminishes us, and that is a confusion about authority. Jesus says, "You've heard that it was said," right? That's their authority. "But I say to you." All of us have inherited a number of voices that tell us who we are. That's you. Don't you love my artwork? Isn't it really professional? That's you. Now, the biggest influence on who you are was who raised you, your family. Huh? Your family. Now, if you'd have been raised in China by a different family, you'd be a different person today. Different set of values, different perspectives. And then you got your community, the people around you, the church you were raised in, the community. Any Yoopers here today? You eat pasties, and if you'd have been raised in a different community, you'd be a different person. And then there's our region. People from the Midwest are different from the people from the South, y'all. Right? I mean, they have a different set of, perspectives, and, they have rebel flags, and, they're just, their region, their community has influenced who they are. And then there's our country, right? The United States isn't China. We have a set of values and perspectives that makes us Americans, and all of these have influenced who we are today. And over all of that is what's called Western civilization. Right? Western civilization, we have more in common with the Scandinavians and the English and the Europeans than we do with those from Thailand. That's Eastern civilization. And over all of that, the Bible calls it the world. It is the world that has influenced who we are. And the Bible doesn't always have a very positive assessment of that. There's good things in all of that, but there's also things that aren't so good. So if we're going to be salt and light, we need someone from the outside to come into this and show us the better rules, the places where what we've been told isn't the best thing. Jesus comes in to do exactly that, to come into the system as the Messiah, as the Savior, to show us what it looks like to be deeply human. Not just because we've been told this is what it looks like. So that we might hear the Word made flesh. Paul put it this way: "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Then," he says, "you'll know what the good, perfect, and pleasing will of God is." Jesus, as the new Moses, invites us up the mountain with him and there under his mentorship, he calls out of us what is already there, our true salt and our true light that has been buried under the bushel of the bad things that this gave us. There's good things, but there's also stuff that's not good. Notice as we climb the mountain, because that's what he invites us to, we have to leave the voices of the valley behind. Long enough to hear what Jesus would have us say. Like the Israel that was raised in Egypt, and they got the voices of the Egyptians in their heads, and Moses has to take them in the wilderness and lead them up a mountain so that they can begin to hear the voice of God. So how do we know what good rules from the bad rules? Because all cultures have rules. How do we know what's good from what's bad? When our authority causes us to oppress someone else, we know we're in trouble. We know we're confused about authority when our rules oppress someone else. The world of the culture of Jesus' day lived by the rules. All cultures have rules. And that's not bad. Right? In fact, the Jewish they called it the law. They had a law for every detail of life, everything. And all societies then also abuse the rules. The problem is not having rules. Rules, generally speaking, are good. It's when humans use rules, spoken and unspoken, to oppress others, that the law becomes bad. Jesus uses here a number of examples. And so someone says, I've kept the law, I've not murdered anyone. Right? And Jesus says, yes, but if you called someone a moron, that's what fool means. Because if he's a moron, I have a right to be angry, and I can treat him like a moron. And so someone from Germany under Hitler might say, I've never killed a Jewish person. But had you call him a degenerate? Because that's what the Nazis called Jewish people. Were you a part of a system that justified killing others? Or in this country, I never owned a slave. But did you call black people by the N-word? Did you call black men boys? Were you a part of a system that justified the oppression of others? You see, the words we use reveals the racism or the problems in our heart. Must be a message from God. I hope we're saying the right stuff here. Maybe God is talking. Anyway, so Jesus says, step back, and consider what you've been told. You have heard that it was said, but I say to you. Now, Jesus is touching all the hot-button issues of his day. He gets right to the heart of the matter, and not just the letter of the law. So let's address the issue of divorce. Not that I want to, but let's address the issue of divorce. Now, Jesus is not really addressing divorce here per se. He's not giving us a law that covers every instance. For instance, Jesus says, about adultery. He meets the woman at the well, and he could have said, because she had 5 husbands. He could have said, you had 1 husband and you committed adultery 4 times. He doesn't say that. He said, you've had 5 husbands. So we don't want to make this too literal. We don't want to make this too restrictive. He's addressing the laws that were used to oppress others. Guess who couldn't divorce? Could men divorce their wives? Yes. Could women divorce their husbands? No. Who has all the power in that relationship? That was the law they came up with. And so it was said that a man could divorce his wife if she burned the toast. Well, that's convenient. Well, I'm kind of tired of you. I think I'll find another one. Here's a letter. Bye. And she would be left penniless and powerless. And that's oppressive. That's what Jesus is getting at. He's getting at the oppression that the rules create. They found a legal loophole that only applied to men. There's a true saying, just because something is legal doesn't make it right. We're confused about authority when our rules oppress someone else. We got all kinds of rules that oppress other people. And so Jesus then uses his authority to say that our rules are not good enough. This is not good enough. It's got good in it, but it's ultimately, we need an outside voice. So the first step in addressing any problem is admitting that there is a problem. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Come on. Who is the fairest of them all? And the queen is fine. She believes what the mirror says. But when the mirror changes the rules and says Snow White, now she's still beautiful on the outside, but she see the ugliness on the inside, don't we? Now his disciples are up on there in the mountain with Jesus, and they think, well, we Jews are the fairest of them all. God gave us the law. We're the chosen people, and those Gentiles are dogs. That's what they called them. And the Gentiles had their own version of that. Now, it might equally apply to any other group. We're Americans. We're the fairest of them all. Or we're the Russians, or we're the China, or whoever it might be. Every group tends to think they're the fairest of them all. We men are the fairest of them all. And Jesus says, because you think you have a law against adultery, that makes you right? I see your heart full of lust, he says. You bring a gift to God in church and you think, well, God is happy with me now, but you have all this unforgiveness toward people in the pews. That doesn't make you just because you're keeping the rules. So before we consider what it looks like to be salt and light in this world, we must first see what is keeping us from being salt and light in this world. We have to see the bushels that are covering the light based on what we've been told, based on the rules. And so when we see that our rules are not good enough, we are ready to listen to Christ. And see, until we see that, if the queen had listened to Christ, mirror, mirror on the wall, she would have said, why do I have to be so bound up being the prettiest? Right? Why is that so important? Well, that came from somewhere, didn't it? By the way, any of you ladies here feel all that pressure to be a size 5 and be 20 years old? Where'd that come from? Every commercial you've ever watched? And every man think, well, we men, we can never show emotions, and we got to be tough, and we got to have all the answers. Where did that come from? John Wayne? Right? Those are the rules that oppress people. So, the queen should have said, what really makes someone pretty? Which is more beautiful, by the way? Beauty on the inside or beauty on the outside? Inside. Which is more beautiful, folks? The law or grace? How about judgment or forgiveness? Come on. How about a lifetime of faithfulness to your marriage partner versus a string of affairs? How about loving your enemies or hating your enemies? Which is more beautiful? Come on. How about a love for country? And we're allowed to love our country, but which is more beautiful? A love for just us or a love for all of humanity? Folks, I am a Christian today because I just can't find a more beautiful way to be a human being than I see in the one modeled who hung on a cross for you and I. Right? Mirror, mirror on the wall. When I see Jesus' reflection, I see true salt and I see true light. And he says, that is who you are. Don't let the rules tell you otherwise. Let it be so.